Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Network Migration Services webinar on Australia and New Zealand tonight. I'm actually using a new Crowdcast background, guys, so I hope it's working. I'm sure if it's not, somebody will tell me it's not. Welcome to the team tonight, or some of the team listening. Ruan, thank you as always for setting this up. Ruan is head of our marketing. Excuse me, forgive me, my name is Andrew Kerr and I'm a licensed immigration advisor for Australia and New Zealand. I'm based in South Africa and I've been based here for 30 years. I am a New Zealander, lived in New Zealand for 20 odd years, moved to Australia, lived there for 10 years, and then I came over to Africa in 1990 and I am still here. I joined Network Migration Services in 1993 and I had an opportunity to purchase the business in 1996 and I did. So for the last 30 years, we've been immigrating people. For 20 of those years, we mostly concentrated on the African continent, but clearly with technology developing the way it has, we've now got clients all over the world because 99% of what we do is electronic. So we've got clients as far away as the Ukraine and England, and also across the other side of the world in Canada, the US, and places like China, etc. I was just saying, please forgive me for the way I sound tonight. I actually have a bit of a bad flu at the moment. There's a bit of it going around Johannesburg at the moment where I'm based. It's pretty chilly here. And I've also got a slight eye infection, so it's hard to read. I'm a bit of a mess at the moment, but we will get through it. We're going to be quite quick tonight. We're going to, jump through Australia very quickly. And then we're going to touch on New Zealand, especially, but these new rules that have come in recently in the last sort of 10 days, which we've known out for a while. I was thanking Ruan. Thank you, Ruan, for setting this up. As always, Ruan's head of our marketing. Thank you to Desiree Lindeque. She's in our New Zealand office. She's our operations manager and provisionally licensed LIA in New Zealand, licensed advisor. Thank you, Liz and Tia Marie. I bet you're having fun now that you're actually living together, Liz and Tia Marie. Liz is head of our HR. Tia Marie is our office manager in Johannesburg. Thank you for joining us as always, and thank you to the plus minus 140 odd people we've got listening to me tonight. We should be having Peter Lemmer on soon. I'm not sure if Peter is there. If you are, Peter, please let me know. He's our New Zealand MD, and I'll be inviting Peter onto the screen in a few minutes just to talk about the job search process for New Zealand, which of course, and Australia, but specifically it's quite essential for New Zealand, not as necessary for Australia. I am a licensed immigration advisor, have been so since licensing became mandatory. For New Zealand, that was back in 2009, and you'll see my licensing numbers on the front slide here. IAA stands for the Immigration Advised Authority of New Zealand, and MARA stands for the Migration Agents Registration Association of Australia. And just a point on that, for New Zealand, if you're giving immigration advice, you have to be licensed. If you're not, it's actually against the law. And be careful. There's one or two companies that practice offshore, one or two specifically that I know of in South Africa, especially, that allow non-licensed advisors to give you the initial immigration advice. And that's against the law for a few reasons. One, you've got to be licensed, and our licensing is mandatory, and we have to renew our licenses every 12 months. And two, with all due respect to a non-licensed advisor, I'm learning things every day. Literally every day, and I've been doing this for 30 years. A non-licensed advisor is not going to know and understand the rules, regulations, and the code of conduct clearly as much as a licensed advisor. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a cheap exercise. I mean, you're immigrating from your home country to a country possibly halfway around the world. And this is going to cost you money. You're well aware of that. We're not fools. We understand that this is a process and it'll cost us. And depending on which country we come from, of course, we'll be spending those sorts of currencies. We quote in dollars, Australian dollars and New Zealand dollars. So you'll see that when I quote you, when I assess you. But clearly, if you're in a rand-based economy like we are in South Africa, it's an extremely expensive exercise. So if you're going to do this, and the reason I'm bringing it up is make sure you are using licensed advisors. Make sure you've got the full information from the get-go. You understand what you're paying for, and you also understand, of course, you also understand what it is the company is actually going to do for you. And we are quite literally the one-stop shop. We have 3 divisions. You'll notice some of my service partners are on the first slide here. My division, if you like, for want of a better term, is the migration process. It's i.e. I'm the licensed advisors along with Desiree's in New Zealand, soon to receive her provisional license in the next week or so. And we are the ones that, of course, are the go-to people. We are the ones that will give you the initial information. And then my team on the visa side, we have 15 file managers. We have 25 team members between the two countries, South Africa and New Zealand. We have 5 people working remotely as well. Due to COVID, it was quite effective to work remotely. One of our senior managers, in fact, works out of London, Caitlin, and she does an excellent job for us. So just use a licensed advisor. Make sure, of course, that you understand what you're getting, as I mentioned. And the 3 divisions is mine, is the visa division. We'll, of course, submit all the visa applications, be them work or family or spouse or child or, temporary residency, businesses, student, whatever. I'll go through that in a minute. With my team, we've got Rose's team. Rose runs the relocation section of the company, which is flights and furniture, meeting at airports and accommodation, and shifting money and opening bank accounts and all that type of stuff, etc. And then the last division, and as important as all of them, is Peter's division, the MD in New Zealand, working with, of course, Desiree over there, our licensed advisor in New Zealand. And Peter's division is the job search division, the job training division. And Peter will be joining us shortly. I'm not sure if he's there. So Peter will be joining us shortly just to explain that. If he's not on, I will clearly explain what the job search process is. And our job training is the best on the planet. We know it is because we've been developing over the last 7 years. Other organisations, good or bad, are copying our model, if you like. But our job search training is intense. It's very focused on you and your scenario and the sorts of work you're looking for. Okay. So tonight, Ruan has already put in my email address. All our emails are our first names at networkmigration.com. At networkmigration.com. One word, of course, network migration. There it is again. Thank you, Ruan. So if you want to be assessed, and after tonight, the assessments are free, ladies and gentlemen, and so are my consultations. I consult with clients all over the world. I did a Philippines client today, as well as a client in China. So the process for getting the understanding of how this process works is completely free. So why not use it? Whether you end up using network migration or not is a second issue, and clearly we'd be honoured to assist you and proud to assist you as we take this process extremely seriously. This is your life we're talking about here. This is not a piece of furniture or a new car. This is the life and the future of yourself and your family, and clearly if you have a family. So the situation being is I need to see your CVs, please. If you're doing a business visa or a student visa, or you're looking at a spousal visa or an investment visa, I clearly don't need CVs. I need an email to me at andrew@networkmigration.com on what information you would like. You might like information on investors, on business, on spouse, on child sponsorships, on parent sponsorships. Those are the sorts of things that, of course, I'll be able to help you with. And what I'll be doing is sending you what we commonly call a pathway to residency document. And that document is based on you and your scenario, and it takes you all the way through to residency with all the associated costs involved. And a second document that I always attach is a quote of our services to do it for you if you wish to hire us. The third document is an information form. We call it an assessment form. Thank you, Kim. I just saw that comment. It's a really nice comment to have, especially when I'm not feeling 100%. And by the way, on that, Kim, if I may be blunt here, and I'm going to be, thank you, Ruan. I'm only as good as my team, Kim, and we, as a team, we are blessed. We are a family, and we treat you as a family accordingly. And I treat my family with respect and honesty, and we do exactly the same to you. So anyway, I'm diversifying. So I just need to know your scenario. And if, of course, it's a skilled migrant application into Australia or New Zealand, I do need to, of course, understand, the structures of your family. So send me your CVs. If you're in a relationship, send me both. You might think, well, my spouse doesn't add to this. You'd be surprised sometimes. Sometimes they do. Add to points or potential residency pathways or processes. So please, if you can, send me both your CVs. If not, no big deal. But most modern CVs don't have ages, and I don't want you to change your CV for me. And in fact, At the moment, I don't even care what your CV looks like. It's really just I need the basics. I need to know who you are, how old you are, how big your family is. So if you have a CV which is just about you and your qualifications or work experience, etc., don't change it for me. Just add a paragraph at the bottom. I'm 43, my wife's 39. We have 3 children, aged 16, 11, and 4, for example. So just let me know the structures of your family and the ages of all of you in the family, and just send me the CVs as is, please. And then I will send you back, and I will resend you back the basic processes for the information you want on either of the countries, okay? So I'm just going to jump into it very quickly. We're going to knock Australia off in about 5 minutes because there hasn't been many changes for Australia. So let me just go into some slides. Network's been around 30 years. I've discussed that. We've done over 15,000 families in those 30 years. We have a 99.9% success rate. We don't take on people that we can't get in. Sometimes there's some untoward things happening, like maybe a medical condition you're not aware of, or et cetera, et cetera. So those are the sorts of things we need to know up front. I'm going to do Australia now, then New Zealand, just have a quick chat about relocation and question and answers through the process, okay? Ruan and team and Des, I haven't seen if Peter's there. Can somebody just let me know if he's there, please? If not, I don't have to invite him in, but if somebody just let me know if he's there? Thanks. Right. So I've talked about us. That's me a few years ago. Australia. Australia's beautiful. I mean, guys, I loved it. I lived there for 10 years. Loved it. I lived in Sydney mainly, but I also lived in Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth. I was working for a company called Macmillan Publishing at the time of the processes. In fact, that's actually how I came to South Africa. I came over with them on a 2-year contract. And then after the 2 year was out, I joined Network. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, there's really not a visa that we don't do. Oh, thanks, Peter. There's really not a visa that we don't do. So skilled migrant, student, family, business, work, etc. It doesn't matter. I mean, holiday, a job search visa, you want to go over to these countries and look for work, etc., etc. And then, Colin, we're going to discuss that. And of course, I need to answer the immigration questions clearly. And people like Liz and Des and Tia Marie and whatever can answer any general questions. And they might just say, refer you to me, because I'm always available to you. We can slot you into my diaries. So once I've assessed you, I would strongly suggest we do a private consult over Zoom, Skype, Teams, Google Meet, or face-to-face. Clearly, face-to-face would be in the Johannesburg office. But I certainly am, and I work Mondays to Fridays and also Saturday mornings. So if you want to have a consult with me, they are free. And as I mentioned earlier, use the information that we've got as a company and as an institution to be able to then go away and make an informed decision, okay? So let's just quickly show you Australia's current scenario when it comes to skilled migrant. I'm not going to talk about business visas tonight, student visas tonight, investor visas, spousal visas, parent visas, whatever. They are quite personal and they're quite specific. And thank you, Des. And anyway, so take screenshots, guys. I mean, I'm going to be going through about 15 or 16 slides tonight, especially the New Zealand slides, which are coming up shortly with all the changes that are coming into effect on the 9th of October. And we'll talk about opinions on that in a minute. But just take a screenshot of that. I'm going to be talking about skilled migrant applications for both Australia and New Zealand as we speak. So one thing I need to bring to your attention, you'll notice Australia on a skilled migrant application, the cutoff age is 44. So if you've already turned 45 and you want to go to Australia under a skilled migrant visa, you can't. It's as simple as that. There's no way that you can do it, okay? There's your points for your qualifications, doctorate, bachelor's, diploma, and trades. And the process is 95% of you that are doing a skilled migrant application into Australia will require to have a qualification. And when I say a qualification, I don't mean work experience. If you're in the computer industry or if you're a senior manager, like a corporate general manager, then you possibly will get in without a qualification because they are the two assessing authorities, Australian Computer Society and the Institute of Management and Leadership, that allows you to potentially get a positive assessment without a qualification. But as I said, 95% of you are going to need a qualification. There are your points for English, 0, 10, and 20. And it's going to be pretty much compulsory for all of you to do the English test, including spouses. And the reason for that is, as you can see, you'll get quite substantial points by getting superior or proficient English. And you might be in London at the moment, or UK, or Canada, or America, or somewhere where you're exempt from the English test. Being exempt is one thing, but of course you can't claim the points for it. So you're probably going to need the points to reach the minimum required lodgement mark of 65. There are your points for skilled employment on the bottom right-hand side. And it's got to be employment that is related to your qualification. So 3 out of 5, 5 out of 8, or 8 out of 10 years. There's some bonus points down the bottom left here that you can take a shot at. Of course, I'll go to the next slide because it helps. So those bonus points sort of cover this section here, which is your different types of visas. If you've qualified in Australia, of course, you'll get extra points if you've got a qualification from Australia. If you have a partner that is also under 45, has a qualification on the same skills list as you, and sits the English, you can claim 10 points for that. Excuse me. If you are a single applicant, you can claim 10 points. If you've got a spouse that's an Australian citizen, you can also claim points. Frankly, I would probably be doing a spousal application if you've got a spouse that's an Australian citizen. Although I must admit, spousal applications are extremely expensive. And then, of course, but competent English, you can get points for having the spouse sit your English test as well, as I mentioned earlier. And then the 3 visas that you'll be looking to apply for under a skilled application would be a subclass 189, which is what I commonly call the blue chip visa. Live where you want, do what you want. And you're going to need a minimum 65 points for that. And then, of course, you've got the 491 and the 190. The 190 is state nominated, and the 491 is either family or state nominated. And on the 190, you get 5 bonus points, and you sign a declaration that says you're happy to live and work in the sponsoring state for a period of 2 years. It is residency up front. And then the 491 is a brand new visa. It came out in November 2019, just before COVID hit. And that is a visa that you get 15 bonus points for. It's issued to you for 5 years. And for 3 years, out of those 5 years, you've got to live in Australia and earn $73,000 a year. And also you cannot live in Brisbane, Sydney, or Melbourne on that visa. And on the earning capacity, sorry, that's not quite right. Excuse me, the transitional skilled migrant application process went up from 53,900 to 73,000. In other words, if you're going into Australia on a work visa, which is commonly called the 482 normally, then you used to be able to get in if you were earning 53,900. They've lifted that off the 1st of July to $73,000, which I must admit I actually agree with. If you're going to go to one of these countries, you should be earning about that clearly, or should be shooting for that sort of mark. Alrighty, so the other thing that I need to mention about Australia is timing. So for both countries, if you engage our services, you're allocated a team member as a file manager. They will send you what we commonly call a starter pack, which is quite simply a documentation checklist. What do we need from you in order to make this process successful? If it's Australia, the process is for skilled migrant, sit your English test clearly as part of the process, get your qualifications assessed as part of the process. And that whole process can take anywhere from 2 months to 6 months, depending on which assessing authority you're using. There is over 30 assessing authorities in Australia, and they take anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months, depending on which is the assessing authority and what hoops you've got to jump through to get a positive skills assessment. Clearly, of course, by hiring a licensed agent, we shouldn't be sending documentations off to assessing authorities that don't come back positive. And that's why we'll make sure 99% of the time there might be a grey area, and if there is a grey area, we're going to tell you there's a grey area before you spend that sort of money. And the assessing authorities, once your English is done and the assessment comes back, we can then load the applications. We load them into the Skills Select site. It's called Skills Select. The old terminology was an expressions of interest. And if you're not selected, you can sit in that site for 2 years. And then after 2 years, you can load yourself back in. But frankly, if you're not selected in 2 years, you're probably not going to be selected. So you might want to consider switching to New Zealand. And the selection is a little bit misleading, or not so much the selections. This number here that I'm showing you, points required, they are the points required to load an application. But that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be selected. because Australia gets selective when it comes to occupations. Give you an example. Diesel mechanics are currently being selected on 65 points. Accountants are being selected on somewhere between 80 to 85 points, just to give you an idea. So you might be thinking, well, I fly and I'm an accountant, I'm sitting on 65 points, but be careful because you might not. The last time an accountant was selected on less than 80, gosh, it must have been 3 or 4 years ago. So just be a little bit careful. We'll warn you of that up front, especially in our consultations. We're going to tell you, yes, this is a no-brainer, subject to health and character and qualifications. You're going to fly in, or you've got a little bit of a grey area here, etc. So that is Australia. Oh, by the way, so once you're selected, if you're in the healthcare or education sector, then you're going to be selected immediately. And when I say immediately, I mean immediately. They're going to select you straight away, probably in the first week, and then send you an invitation to apply for residency. So that's when we send them all of the documents that claim the relevant points: English, of course, qualifications, work experience, etc., etc. And if you're in the healthcare sector and education sector in most jobs, you're going to get your visas granted within the first month. Australia came out about 4 months ago and said all healthcare workers, most healthcare workers, depending on the occupation, of course, and all teachers, please select them immediately and process them immediately. So if you're a teacher, for example, you're going to have a visa plus minus 3 months. And then once you get your visas for Australia, 99% of the time, you've got 12 months to take them up. Okay? So you've got 12 months from the date that your medicals were done. So that's why we leave the medicals till last. Before you need to enter Australia and take up employment. You're landing in Australia as a permanent resident, so Peter and his team in New Zealand will train you on the job search process because it's the same for New Zealand or Australia, but it's way more essential for New Zealand than it is for Australia. Because you need a job offer to get into New Zealand with an accredited employer, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Those of you who are not in the healthcare sector and not in the education sector, excuse me, sorry guys, you're going to look at a processing time of somewhere between 6 to 12 months. Okay, hopefully closer to the 6 months than the 12 months, but Australia reboots their entire immigration numbers as of July 1st, which is 25 odd days away. And they're looking for people all over the world. I mean, last year they took well over 150,000. And this year, I'm hearing the scuttlebutt is they're looking for over 200,000 people to come into Australia. Australian economy is pumping. They're one of the countries that's really done well through the COVID crisis. So Australia is not a bad destination if you qualify. And the one final factor is if you qualify for Australia, you also qualify for New Zealand. So by getting an Australian permanent residency visa, you land in Australia, and then if you want to, you can hop on the next plane, fly to New Zealand, and the moment you enter New Zealand, you're a permanent resident. So you're actually killing 2 birds with 1 stone if you qualify for Australia. Okay. Australia is a little bit more expensive than New Zealand because they charge you when they process you, they charge you individually as opposed to a family application, and New Zealand charges you per family. So again, take a screenshot, send me the CVs, let me assess you for Aussie, and if you want to be assessed for both countries, by the way, just ask me. Right, New Zealand, landed along white cloud. Lots of things happening in New Zealand at the moment. Again, we do all the different types of visas, etc., etc. And I'm going to be. I just want you to listen to this. It was put together by New Zealand Immigration about a year and a half ago, a year ago, just before they launched the accredited employers work visa. So listen to this while inviting Peter in, please.
Where no New Zealanders are available for a job, employers can hire a skilled migrant worker using the Accredited Employer Work Visa, or AEWV. Before inviting a migrant to apply for an AEWV, employers must become accredited with Immigration New Zealand and complete a job check for the role they want to fill. This means migrant workers can have more confidence about the role they're coming to New Zealand for. To gain accreditation, an employer must be a genuine business in a good financial position and have no recent history of breaching employment or immigration law or business standards. The job check confirms that the job pays the market rate, and the terms and conditions of the contract comply with New Zealand's employment standards. Before applying for a job check, employers need to advertise most roles to prove there are no New Zealand citizens or residents available for the job. After an employer's job check has been approved, you will be sent an email containing a link and a job check token. This means you can access the online portal and apply for your visa. The application process is all done online, where you will fill in your details and upload supporting documentation. Immigration New Zealand will check if you meet the requirements for the AEWV and that you have the skills and experience the employer is seeking. Once you are employed, your employer must provide you with to help you settle into life in New Zealand and give you time to complete Employment New Zealand's online modules on employment rights while you are at work. The AEWV is designed to ensure only good employers can hire migrant workers and helps prevent migrant exploitation. More information about the AEWV is on our website.
Hey, Peter.
Hey, Andrew. How's everybody going?
Oh, I think half the bloody country's sick over here at the moment, as you've seen from the chat rooms on the team members. You know, the Joburg team's being hit pretty hard at the moment. This flu, I mean, Rose lost, my wife, as you know, Rose, she lost her voice for 2 days. So did Liz. Literally lost her voice, which I'm glad Rose hasn't listened to this. Wasn't a bad... Oh, shit, sorry. Anyway, so no, I'm joking. But listen, Peter, welcome. Clearly, I'm actually going to be talking a little bit about the political scenario in New Zealand because I'm hearing half the country's telling me that this new process is going to come in, and the other half is telling me it's not going to come in. So, you know, clearly we've got to work towards the fact that it is coming in. The current sitting government in New Zealand is bringing it in. It's as simple as that. You know, to launch on the 9th of October. But other LIAs that I've spoken to in the last sort of couple of days are suggesting they might stall it. So anyway, I'll bring that up. Whether they stall it or not, anybody going to New Zealand under a skilled migrant application is going to need a job. And I noticed somebody earlier said on a comment, and thank you for the comment, you know, Andrew's the go-to guy. Well, and when it comes to the job search training, this is the go-to guy. So, Mr. Lemmer, fire away. How do we help these people get jobs in New Zealand?
Thanks. Yeah.
No pressure.
Everybody, welcome. Well, welcome to the webinar. Yeah, I'm used to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as Andrew's explained, for New Zealand, it's different to Australia. You need to have a job offer before you can get your visas. So the most important part of your journey in immigrating to New Zealand is about getting your first and most important job offer. So what our process is, or what I do, is I have a process which I teach you. It's called the 4-pillar method of teaching you how to network via LinkedIn and other social media platforms, and how to get yourself networked and connected with people in New Zealand. And the process follows the 4 pillars. The training we do, pillar 1 is about search engine optimizing your LinkedIn profile. And people in South Africa don't understand how powerful LinkedIn is. LinkedIn is incredibly powerful in a tool that you can use to trace anybody anywhere in the world if they're on LinkedIn. And I teach you how to connect with people and how quickly to connect with people. So pillar 2 is all about teaching you how to connect your profile. We set up, firstly, pillar 1, a very professional profile. Gets to the point, tells them exactly what you do. Pillar 2 is I teach you to connect with people, and I connect at 5 different levels. People normally only go to and try and connect with an HR manager or a director or somebody, but we teach you at all levels on how to approach people, which is the important part. Pillar 3, then, the training we do is about branding and branding yourself, marketing yourself, how to get yourself noticed in the market. And then pillar 4 is all about interview and culture training. Now, I think if you look at cultures, South Africa, the only commonalities, we speak English. The rest is that their culture is North Pole and we're a South Pole, because we're totally opposites. You really need to understand this before you go into an interview, because the way an interview run in New Zealand is totally different to the way an interview is run in South Africa. And if you're not prepared for it, you're going to be absolutely flawed. or you're going to miss the chances to actually give across your value add to the people. So the interview training we do is quite extensive, and culture training. And what we've done also, due to all the load shedding, I've loaded all these training modules up on a video platform, and you can get access to these videos, and you can do it in your own time, and I review it with you, what your progress is and where you're, if you're making any mistakes, how to correct those mistakes. We also have recruiters in certain areas, in certain fields that we have built relationships with, and if you fit in there, we can send your CV through to the recruiter, and the recruiter comes back and says, yes, I can help, no, I can't, because if they don't have jobs for you at that point in time, they say, sorry, I can't help. Our success rate is incredibly high with us. I mean, imagine getting on a plane, landing here, and starting to go network with people. But we make sure that before you arrive here, you've got at least coming on, if you need to come on a job search trip to New Zealand, that you've got 5 to 8 coffee meetings, we call them coffee dates, set up already. And we teach you how to do that and how to build relationships with people in New Zealand. What we also then do is, after you've gone through the process or you get a job and you're coming across, we then have pre-departure meetings where we teach you about, what to expect in New Zealand, checklist before you leave South Africa. We've got a whole relocation packs that we've designed for our clients who, give you a lot of information, how the bus systems work, where to buy a ticket, all these things. We've got to do checklists before leaving South Africa, close your cell phone account, do this, do that, power of attorneys. We remind you about a lot of things, and it's just a long checklist for you to help you. And when you land on shore, we also meet with you on shore to help you how to rent a home, how to get your driver's license sorted out, how to get your tax number sorted out. So we held your hand all the way through this whole process. We're the only ally I know of that spends so much time with you face to face, training you up on how to work with LinkedIn. Just setting up a LinkedIn profile for you means absolutely nothing in this market. It's what you do with that LinkedIn profile that you have, and how you network. And that's what all the companies don't do. It says, oh, we'll set up your LinkedIn profile. I can also set it up for you, but if I don't teach you how to use it, it's absolutely worthless. So we're the only company who does all this extra training, and our success rate is very high with people. Just to give you an idea, when the borders opened in August 22, within 3 months, 160 of our clients got jobs within those 3 months, just from the networking they'd done on LinkedIn via LinkedIn with people in New Zealand. In COVID times, a lot of people didn't have much to do, and they started networking, and their success rate was very high. The one thing also is, if you want to test the waters to see what are your possibilities of getting a job, you have the opportunity to just do our job search training with myself, and you can go and look and see how does the training work, and you pay for those fees separately. And then if you take on Andrew's fees after that, then we subtract the training fees that I've billed you for from Andrew's visa fees. So it's a sort of people just want to they don't want to spend like $5,000 deposits like some other companies do. You want to start off and see, right, are we legit? Do we know what we're doing? Are we a genuine company? Are we operating? You can start off just with a job search training, and then move on to the visa side when you get more faith about our processes and procedures, and you get to know the team. You start dealing with everybody right from the beginning. Yeah, but thanks very much. It's exciting times, a lot of changes here. I think hand over back to Andrew about the new point changes and all the
things that have been keeping us awake for the past 2 weeks. So thanks so much, Peter. Listen, mate, enjoy your day as always. Love to the family, and we will chat soon. This is a new system on here, so if I remove you, if you just hang up, do you just hang up? Do you, or just I got to remove you?
I think you have to remove me. I don't see any leave the meeting.
If it's removing attendee, you can just log back in again if you need to. Okay. Cheers, mate. Okay. Have a good day.
Bye.
Chat soon. Bye. Right. Unregister. Yes, it's going to unregister you from the event, which if you want to come back, I'm sure you're busy, so go and have a cup of tea and get ready for your day ahead. But if you want to re-register, just log back in. Cheers, man. Bye.
Bye.
Right, guys. Peter should disappear soon. There he goes. Okay, so let's get into nitty-gritty. New Zealand, and I'll talk about what I'm talking about earlier about will it come in, won't it come in a minute. Let's just get to the nitty-gritty. New Zealand bases the skilled migrant application, as we all know, on getting a job offer. Now, that job offer is based not only, of course, on are you capable of doing the job you get, i.e., for example, if you are a greenkeeper and you get a job as a restaurant manager, immigration are going to decline it. Why? Because you've never managed a restaurant in your life. So clearly, the job you get must be married up to either your qualifications and or your skill set. Okay, because some of you might not have qualifications, and we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, but the job offer for the visa to be granted by INZ, Immigration New Zealand, has to meet the minimum salary requirements based on the occupational code. And those codes are called ANSCOs, and they stand for Australia, New Zealand Standard Classification of Your Occupation. Okay? So, sorry guys, I'm just getting back to chats. Okay, right. Now, as you can see, ANSCOs 1 to 3, you've got to be earning $29.66 an hour or round it up to $62,000 a year. ANSCOs 4 and 5 are normally lower skilled required jobs. But ironically enough, you've got to earn a higher amount in order to have a residency pathway in most of them. Some of them you don't, but in most of them you do. So $44.49 or rounded up to $44.50, which is $92,500 odd a year. So if you get a job offer and you're not meeting those minimum salary requirements, immigration won't give you the visa. So part and parcel of our service will, of course, be to work with your employers. And most of the time we do that at zip charge. We don't charge them a dime unless, of course, they want us to maybe do the job token application for you or whatever, and then we'll charge them a few $100s. But Desiree and the New Zealand team does that. So my point is that you've got to be shooting for these types of minimum salaries, okay? Now, let's just jump on to the next slide because most of these slides are new today. So, all right. Now, your pathways to residency, there's a few of them now. Green List Tier 1. Here's the occupations that are on Green List Tier 1. Take a screenshot again. You should be taking screenshots of all of the processes I'm showing you. By the way, this recording, I don't know if you've Ruan's mentioned, but you will all be emailed this recording tomorrow, so you can actually watch it again and go into certain parts, etc. Peter's just mentioned the job quote can be done separately. If you engage the services of Network as a whole, Peter's job search training is free. Well, free in the sense that, you don't pay for it. We do. The main office does. But if you engage Peter first and then you engage us, of course, we will discount you what Peter has to charge you for job search training. So there's Green List Tier 1. If you're on Green List Tier 1, snap it up. Because Green List Tier 1 residency, you're going to get within a month. However, you have to be ready for it. For example, if you need a qualifications assessment, you'd need to do it. If you need registration, you need to do it. If you need your English test, you'd need to do it. But Green List Tier 1 is a straight to residency application. So if you're on the Green List Tier 1, and these were Green List Tier 1 occupations that were added a while ago. So again, take a screenshot of them. If you're on those lists, you will gain residency straight away. Provided, of course, you do. You can still do a work visa if you want to, and then do the residency onshore. That's up to you. I'll explain that to you in a consult, of course. I'll give you all your options. But frankly, if you're on Green List Tier 1, use it. Even if you go in on a work visa first, as soon as you're there and got the extra bucks, I would then be doing a Green List Tier 1 application. All righty. Green List Tier 2 are applications that where you currently, until the 16th of August, which is the last selection under the current EOI points requirement, expression of interest EOI stands for, Green List Tier 2 occupations, you are issued a 3-year visa. As of October, that'll be 5, but I'll talk about that in a minute. A 3-year visa, excuse me, and after 2 years of working for the company, you lodge a residency application after 2 years. So you've got to work for the company for 24 months. And you might be saying, well, do I have to work for the same company for 24 months? No. You've got to be in the same role, but you can change companies if you want to. But if you're going to change companies, for God's sake, let me know before you change, because I need to do another visa for you. Not a full visa application. It's called a variation of conditions, and we do lots of them because lots of our clients are changing jobs on a monthly basis whilst they're in New Zealand. So if you're on green list here too, then you are straight to residency after 2 years. So you get a 3-year visa at the moment. After 2 years, we can lodge the residency application. That's why we stay with our clients until your residence, whether it's 6 months or 5 years. We will be with you until your residence. Okay. Then, roles exempt from the accredited employer's wage, the medium wage threshold. In the construction sector, there's some there, as you can see. Care workforce, there's also some there, and there's the salaries that you can get a visa granted to you as long as you're earning these particular salaries. So take a screenshot of that. Migrants offer these roles can be paid less than the medium wage after granted for 2 years following 12 consecutive months stand down. Now, if you're on these applications or these here, you've got to leave the country after 2 years, which is frankly insane, but I won't talk about too much about that at the moment. But clearly, if you increase the salary in those 2 years that you're working for the company to meet the other requirements I showed you earlier, then we can lodge a different visa application for you. Okay, now let's get down to nitty-gritty. It's called the Simplified Skilled Migrant category, effective from the 9th of October 2023. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm still wrapping my head around it. We all are. There's 1 or 2 people in my organisation, if not 3 or 4, that understand it completely. Desiree, of course, and her team being one of them, because they're at the coalface on a day-to-day basis. Most of my day is spent consulting, of course, and then, of course, checking documents and et cetera, and working with the team in order to submit applications. So I rely heavily on my team to keep me informed, 1, because I'm too old to remember, and 2, because they are just brilliant at what they do to keep me informed of these changes that are happening. Now, I'm going to be slightly political. I'm not going to talk about who I favour at the moment, but there is a general election in New Zealand on October the 14th. Frankly, I personally, and this is my personal statement, I think this is a little bit of a slap in the face that they're going to be bringing in a complete new migration process and policy, literally 5 days before the general election. What happens if Labor doesn't win the general election? I'll leave that up to you. Okay, the 2 parties that will be probably fighting for they will be fighting for the general election, of course, Labor and National. Labor has been in power for the past 5 years, and National haven't. Again, I'm not going to give you my political aspirations right now. You're probably understanding where they're leaning anyway. So, as of the 9th of October, if this comes into effect and stays in effect, I mean, because let's face it, if the government changes, will the new government keep this process? I don't know. They've been surprisingly quiet on it, I must admit. Normally, we would have had some pretty strong debates on this new process, normally in the House, but lots of stuff going on in New Zealand at the moment. A general election coming in 3 months' time. I'm sure they're focusing on, winning, whichever party is focusing on winning. Anyway, so we've got to assume that this is coming into effect on the 9th and will potentially stay in. If it doesn't stay in, that anybody that I'm going to assess moving forward from now on will get in under the old rules anyway. Because the old rules are a little bit more flexible in the sense that you don't necessarily need a qualification under the old rules or current rules. Whereas on these, you could still get in on a work visa, but if you don't have a qualification, you're going to have 5 years to upgrade to a qualification. And we'll talk about that in a second. So you've got high income, which is one pathway to residency. You've got job, which requires registration. Another pathway to residency. These all give you points, by the way, which I'm going to show you the points in a minute. Standard qualification points test, and work experience in New Zealand. So let's go to the next slide. SMC stands for Skilled Migrant Category Medium Wage. I've already shown you this slide on the previous slide with your ANSCO. So there's your 24. 29.66, there it is, from February down the bottom there, the 27th. And 1.5 times the medium wage will now also give you a residency pathway because it's going to give you points. And then, of course, double the minimum wage is also going to give you points as well. So let's hopefully you've screenshotted that or taken your phone out and taken a photo of it. Right, income points. So there it is, at least 3 times the median wage. The requirement under the new policy will be 6 points. You need to get 6 points, not 180, which is currently sitting at 6 points. And if you're earning 3 times the minimum wage, you're getting 6 points straight away. Okay? If you're earning 2 times median wage, you're getting 4 points straight away. If you're earning 1.5 times the median wage, you're getting 3 points straight away. So one thing that Liz and her HR team have developed, well, not developed, sourced, of course, is they can pretty much accurately guess within $5,000 a year of what your occupation is going to be earning in New Zealand. Peter and his team, Peter's been doing this for 7 years, guys. He knows what you're going to earn, all right? And we're going to be realistic about this. We'll always work on worst case or lower case as opposed to best case scenario. It's always worse to work on worst case and be pleasantly surprised if it's best case, okay? Coming to the next slide, qualification points. This is my point about currently you could get in without necessarily having a qualification. You still can, by the way, but you're now going to be granted a 5-year visa under this new category. And if you don't have a qualification, you can't claim any of these points, which means if you're not earning high income or 1.5 the median wage, then it would be unlikely that you'll reach the 6 points. So you might have to consider upgrading a qualification in that 5 years that you're in New Zealand. A lot of the assessments I do are people that have sort of maybe started a qualification and finished, or not finished, stopped because of financial constraints or, family or work or whatever. So you might be sitting with an N3, N4, whatever. If you don't get 1.5 times the minimum wage as a minimum salary, then you're going to have to upgrade to an N7 or higher, okay, if the process that we're currently talking about stays in. And we've got to think it's going to, okay? So there's your qualification points. New Zealand registration points. Now, this is an interesting one. You'll get 6, 5, 4, or 3 points if you're in a job that requires registration. So let's just show you them. I'm going to go through them. I mean, clearly this is dentists and, dental specialists and, pretty much all around the dental profession. Health and social services we've got here as well, your doctors and your dietitians, et cetera, I'm going through them relatively quickly because if you're in that field, you're going to email me anyway. Another health and social, midwives, nurses, psychologists, neuropsychologists, registered nurses, et cetera, paramedics, of course, pharmacists, physiotherapists, etc. You're getting the gist of it. Most of it's to do with healthcare, and of course, in this area anyway, dentists. And then, of course, you've got your electricians and your plumbers, which are coming up. So you've got your registered teachers, your vets, your social workers, your physiotherapists, which we talked about earlier, et cetera, and the points here, as you can see, are being allocated to you. And then, of course, you come into the building and construction sector, electricians, cable jointers, line mechanics, cadastral surveyors, et cetera. Now, you might not be registered at the moment, but part of our service is going to help you to be registered in New Zealand. And once you're registered there, of course, then we can claim the points. So that'll be part of our service. One thing that we do, for example, most of the other organisations that I know, if not all of them, let's say you're an electrician. When I say organisations, I'm meaning licensed advisors. Let's say you're an electrician. They'll send you the link to EWRB to go and do your own electrical registration. We do it for you. If you're a teacher, we'll register you. If you're a social worker, we'll go through the process of the registration for you, et cetera. We do that work for you. There might be some things you need to do, like do a conversion course or 2 or whatever, but we will work alongside you to do that, whereas most of my other colleagues in our industry don't do that. They just send you the link, which often makes me wonder what you're paying for, of course. But anyway, let's not go there. Again, registered engineering associates, chartered profession engineers, brick and block laying. I mean, I didn't realise you could actually get licensed for brick and block laying and external plastering and roofing licenses and all this type of stuff. So again, there's 3 points sitting there. You might not have You might be a carpenter, but don't have a qualification, but we can get you licensed in New Zealand, for example, which gives you the 3 points. You work in New Zealand for 3 years, you get 3 more points. Again, architects, certified plumbers, gas fitters, plumbers, blah, blah, etc., etc. Pretty straightforward, that one. And there's your accountants, barristers, solicitors, etc., etc. And then, of course, maritime, which is interesting, isn't it? I mean, New Zealand, Auckland's called the city of sails for a reason. More boats in Auckland per capita than any other city in the world. Anyway, so if you're a maritime worker, you can get, and you're getting licensed and registered, you can claim those points. And there is your points, final summary for working in New Zealand. So let's say you've got a degree, a standard degree, a BCom now, and you get a job in New Zealand related to your BCom. That gives you 3 points straight away because it's a BCom. And then you work in New Zealand for 36 months prior to the 60. In other words, remember, you're given a 5-year work visa. So after 36 months of working in New Zealand, there's the extra 3 points. There's your 6 points. Bang. So we'd get you in on your work visa, and 36 months later, we would do your residency application. Okay. Now, what we've decided to do under those circumstances is quote you on just if it's going to be 3 years before we can do your work visa, then your residency application. Then we're happy to send you 2 quotes, one just for the work visa at the moment, and then one for the residency application as well. And then in 3 years' time, if you're engaging us for the residency, you'd literally just pay the difference between the 2 quotes, if that makes sense to you. It should. It's pretty straightforward. Okay. So we're working tirelessly. My team is putting in lots of time and effort and after-hours work, etc. We have over 700 active clients at any given stage, hence the fact that we're not a small organisation. We have 25 team members. And I'm really proud of the fact that they've really put their heads down. And in the last 10 days, we've been reassessing all of our clients that are in New Zealand. And it brings me to a point, and I had a conversation, and I was on the conversation with Liz, with one of our clients. I think it was this morning or yesterday morning. Sorry for being a bit vague. Now, I'm going to be very, I'm not wishing to sound aggressive here at all. But this is a couple where they're both in their early 50s. And he went into New Zealand under a policy which allows him to get residency once he's worked for 12 months. Now, he's only been in New Zealand for 5. This new process will come in on October the 4th. So that means that he does not have a pathway to residency. He does not have time. He's not 51, he's 54. He does not have time while he's in New Zealand now to upgrade his qualification to the level I would need to claim the extra points. So what happens? What happens with this guy? Okay. Is he going to be told by immigration, I'm sorry, your visa, you don't have a pathway to residency, so we can get you another 5-year visa, but of course you're going to be over 56 at the time that we apply, because the cutoff age for New Zealand is 56, by the way, not 45 like Australia. The cutoff age is 56. So what happens to him? Well, I can promise you this. I will do my utmost to make sure that this family and the others that it affects, because he's not the only one that this affects, stay in New Zealand. And if I've got to fight government on it, I will. I don't agree with some of the changes that have come in on how they affect people that are already there. And there hasn't been full-on clarification of that yet. So maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on our current government. And our current government, I mean, let's be blunt, guys, is going through a little bit of a turmoil. Unfortunately, the Minister of Immigration, the Right Honourable Michael Wood, stepped down last week. I won't go into the reasons why. If you want to find out, go onto Facebook or Google or whatever. He stepped down last week. He was Minister of Immigration, Transportation and Education. He stepped down. There were reasons for it. You can find them out. And the Right Honourable Andrew Little has now been made our Minister of Immigration. And I've never met Andrew. Clearly, he's never met me. And poor old Andrew's been thrown in this portfolio a week ago. And with all of these changes happening, so I feel for him, I do. He's going to get lambasted left, right and centre from people that are in New Zealand saying, hold on, How do I stay here? I've spent my life savings coming over. I've done my utmost to stick to the rules and regulations. The rules and regulations, when I came into this country, gave me a pathway to residency. And you're now telling me I don't have one? I'd say if that happens, they're leaving themselves up for civil suits. And I will back them 100%. So guys, those of you who are listening that are my clients, those of you who are clearly not my clients yet and possibly want to become one, I made a commitment to that client this morning and yesterday morning. I said to them openly, I will not allow them to leave New Zealand. So I'll fight this tooth and nail if the changes don't allow them to stay. And I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping that there'll be some sort of ministerial intervention at a later stage for any client that this new policy affects if it stays in. Remember, it's coming in 5 days before a general election. I must admit, I think that's a little bit weird. I would have left it till after the general election. I'm not a government person. I'm not a political person. But it's such a major change that's affecting so many people. Forget the people that are offshore at the moment. Imagine the people that are onshore and that have been there a year or 2 or 3 and are in the process of lodging the residency applications. The last selection on the current SMC pathway at 180 is on the 16th of August. And we're running around like blue-ass flies at the moment trying to get clients that qualify for that last selection into the system to be selected on the 16th of August. And we're achieving that goal. Thank you, and thank you to the team. But there'll be some people that won't be able to get in before the 16th of August because they're not sitting on 180 points. So how is it going to affect those people? Well, at the moment, it's a bit of a grey area. I'm asking those people to take 3 deep breaths, stay safe, stay positive, and know that myself and my colleagues will be working extremely hard to make sure that those of you who are in New Zealand stay. And I'm confident that we'll be successful being able to achieve that goal. Okay? And those, of course, of you who are starting new, as I mentioned earlier, the process of this, if you're getting in under the new points, because I'm assessing people under the new points at the moment. And for those people who don't qualify under the new points, I'm sending you work visa processes only. So if I send you a work visa process only, it's not because I'm not thinking you've got a pathway to residency. I just need to talk to you because and I need to sit with you for 45 minutes to an hour, which is what a consultation takes. Because if I send you work visa only, it's because I would strongly suggest you contact me for a consult because I've got in my mind the way you can become residents. But to put that in an email is just going to confuse the hell out of you. So if you can get in on a work visa only, I'm going to send you a work visa only. But I'm also going to want to talk to you about how you can get residency in those 5 years, assuming that this particular process stays for those 5 years. Okay. So I hope tonight's been informative. I'm not sure if there's any questions I haven't answered. Hopefully the team has answered most of them along the way. As you can tell, I'm an open book, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very direct. I'm very upfront. I'm very straightforward. I will tell you yay or nay straight up. And if you've got a residency pathway to either of these countries, I will be letting you know, and I'll be letting you know all the associated processes and fees and etc. with those particular pathways to residency. So I'm going to log off now. Stay safe, everybody. Please look after yourselves wherever you are in the world. If you do engage the services of Network Migration Services, we would be incredibly proud to work with you and for you over the next few years. And if you don't, I wish you all the very, very best in your new venture. Ms. Windruss, the spouse visa. Again, I need to speak to you about this, but currently, until the 18th of August, the spouses are issued visas, which are open-ended, and they can go to New Zealand, but they must get a job at $29.66 an hour with an accredited employer as well, which, again, I don't understand. So there are certain things about this process that I think will be tweaked, and I'm confident, as I've said, that we'll be able to keep everybody that's in New Zealand there. So thank you, everybody, for coming into the webinar tonight. Really enjoy this evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Tia Marie. Thank you, Desiree. Thank you, Ruan. Thank you for those colleagues of mine that I didn't thank. And thank you to my team once again for all the hard work. Stay safe, everybody. I look forward to working with you in the future. And if I don't, I wish you all the very, very best. Ciao.